Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends. Welcome to ACM. I'm Wei Qi, Assistant Curator for Fashion and Textiles at the ACM, and the Curator in charge for the special showcase SG Fashion Now Runway Singapore at the ACM. I will be moderating today's session. So ACM Conversations is a series of monthly talks that brings together leading scholars, cultural practitioners, artisans, and community resource persons in Singapore and from abroad, in conversation with curators and educators at ACM. This talk series would not have been possible without the generous support of Dalio Philanthropies. Founded by Dalio family in 2003, Dalio Philanthropies focuses on creating equal opportunities in education, healthcare, and technology access, with strong commitments to fostering local and global community and exploring and protecting the Earth's oceans. The topic of today's conversation is fashion and cities. What makes a fashion city? How do urban landscapes shape the way we dress and design? From shopping to designing, the relationship between fashion and the city can be characterized by spaces, networks, and activities of production and consumption. As Singapore's identity as a fashion city continues to evolve, its urban landscape has shaped the way we dress and design. Today, we are honored to invite Pit Firdaus Aris from Studio Vetyver and Ify Ubby from OliveAnkara as they discuss how their work has been shaped by Singapore and the cities that they inhabit. They are joined in conversation by student curator Brian Loh from LASALLE College of the Arts, who will also share his process documenting Singapore's streetwear scene and co-curating this exhibition. This panel discussion is organized in conjunction with SG Fashion Now Runway Singapore, co-curated by students of LASALLE College of the Arts School of Fashion. It's the final and largest showcase of ACM's ongoing SG Fashion Now series, which explores Singapore fashion through the lens of the city's cosmopolitan and port city heritage. Before we begin the conversation, I would like to give a very short intro and background on what the SG Fashion Now series entails. So the SG Fashion Now exhibition, if you haven't already visited, it's in our contemporary gallery, and it's from 27 June until 1st September. So it closes this Sunday, so if you haven't seen it, now's your time to go, and this weekend as well. So SG Fashion Now, Runway Singapore, it celebrates Singapore fashion through the lens of our port city heritage and cosmopolitan city. So this exhibition, it premiered in Busan first, and then it later traveled to Seoul. And this exhibition series has been around since 2021, and it was a collaborative exhibition series in collaboration with students of LASALLE School of Fashion, and this was in conjunction with the students at LASALLE. And so this series has been a 3-year series in collaboration with LASALLE College of the Arts School of Fashion. And the purpose of this exhibition was to give students the opportunity to co-curate with curators at ACM. And over the 3 years, we have essentially given students the opportunity to work with ACM curators. And in the first edition, we started with quite a modest number of designers, with 8 designers, later expanding to 16 designers in 2022. And this year, with the largest edition yet, we have 28 designers. So earlier, as I mentioned, SG Fashion Now, this particular edition, it actually premiered first in Busan and then later traveled to Seoul. And the reason for this was that Korean audiences were very curious about what Singapore designers were designing. And we are very thrilled by the opportunity to showcase the talent that we have here in Singapore fashion. So this is what it looked like in Busan at the ASEAN Culture House. And then this is the same exhibition that later traveled to Seoul in KF Gallery. And we're really excited to be bringing back the exhibition to Singapore for Singapore audiences to see at the ACM Contemporary Gallery. So this has really been a 3-year-long collaboration with LASALLE. And as you can see, the exhibition has taken on different iterations throughout the editions, and this really reflects the ever-evolving identity of Singapore fashion. And with this series, essentially what we're trying to say is that there is no one definition of Singapore fashion. There is also no one answer. And what we're more interested in, together with the students of LASALLE, is asking what Singapore fashion could look like and how it can take on very multifaceted definitions. So this year's edition, the largest edition with 28 designers, it's divided into 3 themes which are informed by each of the editions since 2021. The first theme is craftsmanship, which essentially looks at the making of fashion. What does it mean to make clothes? How do fashion designers work with their hands? And how do they make to measure to fit the clients that they dress? The second theme is innovation and tradition, which is in line with one of ACM's core pillars. And this is really looking at how fashion designers are using traditional techniques, textiles, and silhouettes, and how do they interpret them in different ways that we might be used to. And last but not least, the last theme is urbanite, which essentially looks at the rise of streetwear in global fashion, and how has streetwear and pop culture influenced the way our fashion designers design. So that brings us to the topic of today's talk, which is fashion in cities. So what makes a fashion city? Fashion is very intertwined with the cities that we inhabit. And I think as cosmopolitan citizens, sometimes we lose sight of the fact that we do live in a city, but that also very directly affects the way we design and dress. And I'm very excited to be introducing our three speakers today. Pit Firdaus Aris from Studio Vetyver, Ify Ubby from OliveAnkara, and Brian Loh from LASALLE College of the Arts. Without further ado, I'd like to invite our first speaker, Pit Firdaus Aris from Studio Vetyver, to share more about his brand.
Test. Hi, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank Wei Qi and ACM for having me here. I think it's not so often I get a space and a platform to talk about my work. So having a space and a platform like this is really a privilege for me. So my name is Pit, and I have been working in fashion for almost a decade. I graduated, I was trained in fashion design, and I worked under different brands. But I've never considered myself as a fashion designer in a way. I think I just like to make stuff. I enjoy making. I think I'm a maker, so I hardly would introduce myself as a fashion designer to most people in general. Yeah, so I started Studio Vetyver in 2020. It officially launched, but the blurb is basically we are an independent fashion project that aims to create a discourse to reinterpret nuances of the unseen and familiar. We also find inspiration in the mundane and ordinary, producing works that draw attention to the overlooked areas of everyday life. I realized that writing this, most people would be, it's too abstract. So I think this is a good time for me to kind of like explain what I mean. So when I first started the brand, I mean, there is an intention there. It didn't come out from nowhere because I've never wanted to start a brand. And I think I didn't start it as a brand. I looked at it as an art project. So these were the first few things that kind of like motivated me to do this project. The first question, sorry. The first question is, I wanted to, I always thought of like Singapore as like a fashion city, but I've never seen it as like, if you think about other fashion capitals or fashion cities like New York or London or Tokyo, they have a very distinct aesthetic or look to it. And I've always like wondered like how would Singapore aesthetic be like on the realms of contemporary fashion, or how I am able to interpret that. And also how does our cultural and urban landscape informs the way we dress, right? And specifically, can we demystify fashion through a Western lens? And what I mean by that, it also includes how a Western one and is an Asian look like. So I feel like that's important for me to like unpack, right? Yeah. I also wanted to know how we can find inspiration around us. Most of my friends are like fanatics of traveling, but I find joy in like looking at things that are already in front of us. And also like, why should we not overlook these questions? I think this is like what I wanted to address. So based on this set of questions, three collections has developed. It's a long time in making because it's a very slow process. But if I were to go through like the first collection, second and third, the first one is called Unform. It's kind of like a wordplay on uniform. The second one is called Paradise, and the third is called Sodium, which is a wordplay on sodium. So I will go through with you what this different collection means to me. So the first collection is really based on like my memories, my upbringing in public schools, but also looking at uniform. I realized the works that I create are always things that I hated growing up. Like I hated wearing a uniform. I hated like going to school. But I felt like now that I'm at this stage, I look back and I find like there are interesting qualities. Like uniforms are like it's sustainable. You wear something that you like. You don't think so much about it. And why can't I bring this into the fashion sphere, right? So again, it's all about looking at the void decks, public schools, BTOs, like Singaporean dream, right? Old school versus new school. Also having a clean slate when thinking about like properties, or like you think about like estates in Singapore, and about the heartlands, our perceptions of modernity as well. Like what is modern, right? Is modern 3 years ago still modern now? The uniforms of work in academia, and also the idea of conformity. I think as Singaporean, it's always like there's a lot of like, growing up, there's a lot of like things to conform. So like, okay, I'll conform in this collection. So it became like a whole range of like white shirtings and such. Yeah, so I was looking at like estates and like all these like really clean, and how historically as well, how having a uniform as an identity is important in like the building of our nation in a way, I think. Yeah. So then after the first collection was done, I looked into the second collection, which is called Paradise. At the point of time, I rented a studio space, and I decided to, okay, you know what, like why not I respond to the spaces that are around me? And my studio was in Geylang, and Geylang was very interesting for me because it was, it was grunge, it was rugged, it was not like a clean estate, but there's a lot of character within that. Right? And I think it's all about the juxtaposition of being like stuck in the middle of the red light district, opposite, with like clans or like religious association. That two contrasts was something that really like inspired me to make this collection. So then, I thought about shop houses. I thought about, okay, now I worked on a public school. So what would this, we all go through this phase in our life where there's a certain part of like, rebelliousness or whatever, right? Like after school, what do we do after school? Do we go to these lorongs? Do we find out what's in it? Are we interested, or how do we choose between spirituality and sexuality? Like where does that line? So it's like an in between as well for me, and I thought that was like really interesting. So again, perceptions of counterculture, like how every generation will always try to counter the previous generation, right? That's just a way of like in fashion. And I also thought about like, what are the uniforms of our surroundings? What are the uniforms of vice or virtues? And again, and then this became a whole look of like non-conformity. Like how do I create a collection that doesn't conform to what people want? So that's how this collection wanted. And also like some of the things I like to take street photographs, but I don't, people would think that I'm a lighting designer or like some filmmaker, but I use them to actually respond to the clothes that I make. So this is our new collection. It's called Sodium, and it's a response to, it's a wordplay on stadium. So sodium, sweat, salty. And again, every collection is also a reflection of what Singapore identity is in a way, because you have all these extracurricular activities, you have these exercises, and the government. We are expected to live in a healthy way. So I think that was interesting to look at, and I think things that happens within these areas are also very interesting, right? Like sometimes they are funny, sometimes they might be overlooked because just the way like someone dresses up or not think when they dress. Sometimes maybe even cooler than people who like try to dress so much, right? Or try to put too much effort. So I thought that was very interesting. And then thinking about the school team, national team, all this team building. The retro height of like Singapore sports ads. I think I was looking at all these advertisements in the 70s, and they were so interesting. So again, what are the uniforms of sports? And how? And again, it's a nation. As a nation, there's all this like you know, the NDP stadiums. That's where they are at, right? Together we make a difference. So it's all about motivation and energy and spirit and like you know, it's blending. I think I like to look at things that are maybe a bit techy, but like you know, and then a bit polished. I find that interesting. Like techy and polish is something that is super. Is what I work with a lot. Yeah, so I would call these three collections like a addition of like the DNA of the brand. You know, the first is trying to be very intellectual or whatnot. The brain, you know, we have the void decks, and then it goes to the spirituality and sexuality side of the collection, which is like the heart. And then now we have the lungs. So it's kind of like an emoji for all these three collections, which is the DNA of the brand. So from void decks to shop houses to stadiums, public schools, you know, from looking at estates of BTOs to lorongs to like running tracks. I think it's also, you know, the old school, new school, anti-school, like Ponteng, right? That's like you when you truancy, that's what all the teachers would say. The school team. Also interesting about, you know, renovations, demolition, and ambition. I think these three are very interesting like areas to kind of like look into, right? When I create my clothes. Perceptions are also very interesting, like what do people perceive as modernity? You know, what do people perceive as countering a culture, or what do people perceive of health culture? So right now, this collection is really looking into like, you know, in the state that we are in, we are interested in mindfulness, we are interested in like therapy, and I think all this builds into our identity, and it's interesting to look at this, you know, how an urban environment informs the way our culture is. Right? So the last blurb is just that, you know, at the end of the day, we just want to disrupt the bureaucracy of what fashion should or should not be by responding almost like a documentary, right? Like if I respond honestly or document space, how can you tell me that the work is not like honest to what it is? It's just a mirror, right? And each collection that we do is just a studies of the spaces that we are in or the studio that I'm at that has been documented. So it's kind of like a timestamp, right? For me, when I look back, these are all timestamps of what the collections are at. Yeah, so I'm also currently doing my master's in fine arts currently, and if you want to check out my works, my thoughts are at Studio Vetyver, and my prayers are at PFA. Thank you.
All right. Hi, everyone. So I want to start with this slide. So I counted self for a living, and now I count on the story that I wave on my designs. So yeah, before becoming a fashion designer for OliveAnkara, I'm a former cancer scientist, so I used to play with cells, DNA, RNA, and this is me in Trieste, in Italy, where I did my PhD, passion for science, PCR, RNA, younger, Ify, short hair. Yeah, passionate about science, but this brought me to Singapore. So I moved to Singapore to do my postdoc in human molecular genetics, and yeah, when I moved to Singapore almost more than 10 years ago, oh my God, I realized that Singapore has a lack of the representation of the African culture. So I was born and raised in Italy from a Nigerian family, and the African culture was always part of my life. So I felt like homesick. And moreover, in Singapore is the best place where you can represent the real meaning of the word melting pot. A lot of people from different cultures. So yeah, I decided that I should represent my culture. I should bring my culture here to Singapore. To be honest, it started all by stealing clothes from my mom's wardrobe because I couldn't find any piece of African fabric here. And then I decided I should start with OliveAnkara, and that was in 2017. And until now, OliveAnkara is built on two main core values. One is female empowerment, and then sustainability. So OliveAnkara stands for a world where diversity and inclusivity are valued and celebrated. OliveAnkara's identity is a fusion between African, Asian, and Italian craftsmanship, and promoting, celebrating the diversity and the tradition, but while at the same time promoting sustainability. So the mission of OliveAnkara is to create meaningful and sustainable high-quality clothing, but my personal mission is to bring the joy, the vibrancy of the African prints, and not only Asian and then Italian elements into people's life. I want people to feel the boldest version of themselves. So yeah, OliveAnkara is also, why OliveAnkara is a slow fashion brand? Because we prefer quality over quantity, so small production over mass production. And as you can see, we do ready-to-wear apparel, and with the leftovers that we have from production of clothes, we create fashion accessories and then ready-to-wear kids apparel. So yeah, OliveAnkara started in 2017. This was how the first logo of OliveAnkara, and then now has evolved, finally, a proper one. And this was our first ever pop-up that we did here in Singapore. And already here I was really into sustainability. I was using my husband t-shirts, creating accessory and necklaces, and then incorporating some leftover from Ankara fabrics. And then I decided to move into creating women's wear using fabrics coming from Nigeria. So my cousin will go to the market and then shop the fabric for me and then send it here. So the first image is an image of 2 days before the launch of the brand. And as you can see, we were still creating small accessories, still not ready to launch the brand. And with the small piece of cloth, we were able to create like all these accessories. So the idea is still try to waste as little as possible and use as much as possible for the fabric. For me, it was a no, I can't throw this fabric away. This was the night before the launch of the brand. We had this amazing runway at the Hive, and it was so nice how I was able to showcase my culture, but also my collection to a very nice audience. And okay. And then you will see in the next slides how some of the designs were are still present in the OliveAnkara. This was the launch date. We did a pop-up, a one-week pop-up in a gallery in Arab Street, and was super nice. So OliveAnkara started as, it's the women's wear brand, and the idea here is that I want to showcase, I want people to feel empowered, to feel confident with wearing and celebrating a different culture that perhaps is not theirs. One of the milestones of 2018 was our first showroom in Tiong was a place where I could create my small little accessories and clothing, and a place where I could share and people could experience my culture. And then June 2018, was for the first time releasing Sam collection. For me, it's very important, and then also for OliveAnkara, it's very important to mix the cultures. As I said, my heritage is Nigeria. I was born and raised in Italy, and now I live in Singapore since 10 years. So it's very important to mix the cultures together and be able to elevate it. And then later that year, I decided to blend two more cultures, the Japanese culture and then the African fabrics. And you can see here our collection called Afromono, so kimonos made with African fabrics. A collection that was unisex, good for everyone. So this is also again to showcase how I really wanted to remove the stereotype of Ankara fabrics, African fabrics are only good for black people, are only, nice on darker skin, but actually is for women. We are celebrating women of all colors, people of all colors. As you can see, for me, it was always important to have a representation of different ethnics in our photo shoots. And yeah, 2019, we finally moved in a big showroom, and this is actually also what is our showroom right now. So I don't know if any of you have been already at OliveAnkara. Yay! I can see someone. If you haven't, please come and visit us. This is how it looked before in 2019. This is how it is now. Yeah, so when you step in, in the doors of OliveAnkara, you will be immersed by the African, but not only, but Asian and Italian culture. So it's a very nice experience. And we will be there to tell you a little bit more about the story and then the meanings. Yeah, then 2020, I had so many collections, so many ideas, but then what happened? We all know COVID happened. So I think I will skip because I don't have so much time. Yeah, here was when I had to close the shop, and I decided to start to work on my project using leftover fabrics. And indeed, I used leftover fabrics, but just to create masks. Yeah, was an idea to, waste as little as possible of our fabric, but also I wanted to bring the joy and the colors into really in people's life now. Yeah, this led us to a big step. 2021 for us was a year of transformation. We started using sustainable materials, and then digitally printing our original prints, a reinterpretation of African culture and Asian influence into our new designs. So this is the first collection that we did with these sustainable fabrics, Tencel Lyocell. I don't know if anyone is familiar with Tencel. No one? Okay. So Tencel is a natural fiber, comes from wood, and is compostable and biodegradable. Not in your wardrobe, trust me, only when you want to dispose it in certain ways. So let's say that this will end in the ocean, it will decompose in 22 weeks. So you know that you don't have an impact in the environment. And then on this fabric, sustainable fabric, we have created our own prints where we were inspired by West African and Japanese element. Later, maybe I will explain more. And yeah, this is the collection that we have launched in 2021. So I will just move directly in 2024, which is like our latest collection made with Ecovero. Ecovero is another sustainable fabric, certified renewable wood source. And also here we have created our own original prints, but also used some African prints to create this collection. And this is basically to showcase how we are all interconnected. One of the print is very touch a lot my heart because it's a mix of Italian culture, Asian culture, actually Singaporean culture, and then African culture. And this is a collection that was inspired by two, we were talking about cities, inspired by Little India. So we're shooting Little India, but also in Venice. And then is again to showcase how cultures, how we are all interconnected and how different environments can inspire us. This is a question that I've been asked always quite a lot. So were there any challenges along the way as an entrepreneur, and how do you overcome those? And then my answer is networking and partnership with other brands. But the most important is to build a community of people that, from everywhere, not only African, Italian, but a community of people that really are culturally curious and there to support you along the way. So this is, there are some pictures of our latest birthday, OliveAnkara birthday party. I felt very overwhelmed from the support, and then everyone came dressed up, so it was super nice. And then another thing is a collaboration with other brands, Singapore-based brand, in this case, two Singapore-based brands swimwear. And I think that's important because you always have to be open to new ideas and new things and explore new things. Yeah, then this is my last slide. Yay. I managed. We are also loved by the press, so we had quite some features from local and global magazines. And yeah, that's all. So I will hope to see you all at the showroom one day, hopefully soon. And thank you so much.
Hi guys, I'm Brian. So as you all might know that I just graduated from LaSalle, so I'll just talk about a little bit about myself before I will go on talking about the project. Okay, so after about a year of graduation, I'm working at Club 21 Marketing. I'm also portfolio head creative designer, and I'm a freelance creative. There's a lot going on, so bear with me. Thanks. So for the last month, I've been working on two main projects, Mercedes and Club 21 fashion show. It just happened last Thursday, if I'm not wrong. Yes. So I was just handling the whole project as it is, from models to your catering to how the show goes about. Yeah. There's some videos, so I'll probably skip that because we are running out of time. The next one is happened recently on Tuesday. We had a Korean brand focus show. Our special guest was Rain, so there was a lot of logistics going on. I don't think I can show that, but it's okay. So we had some special designer as well, Bonbon, that came down and he presented his collection. Next. These are some of my potato head works. So I'm a creative designer there as well. And I also kind of do like advice for music curation. My boss, I would say, would be a long-time DJ, and I'm also a DJ as well. So I will advise him on like the younger generation of the new DJs. So these are my freelance works that happen also within that month. I've worked with Glitter Queen, Paulina, and Young Raja for his upcoming music video. So those pictures that you've seen haven't been released yet. Some of the places that I've been playing at would be mostly underground communities or underground like music. So your techno or your house. And yeah, I always think that music is quite important, not just not just fashion, but everywhere else. Example would be like even from a fashion show perspective, where like how the models are coming out, you wouldn't want like Blackpink music to just play at the background while like the models are walking. I don't think that is the best way to present the clothes. So I always think that music in a way has always been like support for fashion, vice versa. Yeah. So I think the first thing that I wanted to, I guess this crowd is quite a older crowd. So like, so like in my head it was like, okay, all the students were coming, but like I think for everyone else it's more, I wanted to let everyone know that just to be brave in terms of any projects that you are taking on. I think that is very important. If you are not brave, I don't think you will be able to push yourself. So it's not just being brave, right? But also just to do whatever you want to do. Yep. Next. So for my final year project, which is this exhibition, I started off actually wanting to create my own brand for my final year project. But then it kind of translated to doing an exhibition. There are some fights here and there with my teachers lah, but I think in that case, but it eventually went into a project where I thought it was very meaningful. I met so many designers like Firdaus, Ify, Ash, so many. I just realized that there are so many talented Singaporean designers out there that are not they are not like pushed out into like the rest of the world. So this was one way that I thought I could like present it as well. So the brief of that whole project, right, was to engage with the fashion community. I think I've done that. An addition or a snapshot of this evolving conversation, and a topic of creative practice on our shores. So to showcase like how Ify does her collections, how Firdaus has does his collections, like the different techniques that are being used for all these clothes. Like every single designer have their own different approach to how they design, and even the things like let's say pleating. Some might go more into it, some might not, but you will see a whole different like new product coming out of each designer. So I thought that this, like just doing this project was quite an eye-opener for me. Next. So to bring all of them together, the main bulk of it was to put under the umbrella called hybridity, and it was to interplay between the traditional and modern elements, because we are also showcasing like old designers such as Ong Shumugum. I don't know. There are a lot of designers. So all your established Singaporean designers, and then also all the new designers as well, including like brands such as YIB. So the three main, I would say breakdown would be craftsmanship, innovation in tradition, and urbanite. Craftsmanship to showcase, all your designers up there, Benny Ong, Thomas Wee, showcasing all these older designers that I think have paved the way for all of us. And then innovation in tradition, where these designers start to mix between traditional techniques or traditional silhouettes with new innovations, such as new fabrics or new techniques that how they put them together. And urbanite, it's a streetwear and contemporary fashion. Basically, I just put everything that I like in there. So you got YB, Salvages, Studio Vetyver, all these different brands. So I think just now it already showcased what was there in Korea. So this was like the process of putting all the clothes into one area. That vest that you see is worn by CL. So I think I'm glad that we got that to showcase. This was supposed to be a video, but we'll move on. So for my final year project also, the added element that I wanted to do was like a 3D augmented world. And I thought the best way to do it is to just put it in a video form. I have also collaborated with one of my own like peers that she did like a 3D social influencer of sorts. So you see on the left, the top left, right? Or the one all the way at the left, that model there, right? It's actually just a 3D constructed human being of sorts. And I thought that this was one way that to present like the new way of fashion, or what I thought would be the future of fashion. Coming out from COVID and all that kind of thing, fashion itself, I guess there's a lot of like pollution, not just like, and a lot of work in terms of photography, logistics, and all that kind of thing. And I was just thinking, what is the better way to present fashion moving forward? And one of it was 3D, because you don't have to go out and do all these things, right? While you just sit on the computer and just like, oh, I put a new model with the new like 3D garment on it, and then you can just present it out. So that was one of these things that I wanted to show, like how we can push in a way like the visuals of fashion in the future. So this was supposed to be a video. We'll play it later. And also the other elements is that I have interviewed all the different designers as well. And this was quite eye-opening, because like I said, right, different designers have different approach. different approach have different mindsets, and different mindsets have different businesses. And I think from there, I have learned a lot through like each and every one of them, even down to the new generation, like YIB. I mean, they're like my age kind of thing. All of them have a different approach. Example would be like Ping, a life form. He's a Singaporean who is based in Japan and decided, oh, I wanted to do like 3D shoes. And then that just like, he used whatever he has learned in 3D and then created a whole new product. And I thought that was like something that, oh, it put Singapore on the map. Yeah. So this was supposed to be one of the other designers. And then we have YB. Their approach, I got into them because they are streetwear, of course. And when I started doing or researching about them, I thought this was who I kind of maybe aspire to be. I don't think so, but let me think about it. But anyways, I just thought that their approach was very interesting, or how they even went into Dover Street Market or stock at Dover Street Market. And it comes back to being brave. Like, they weren't afraid. They were just going out there. When the opportunity arises, they took it without any experience. And that was something that, oh, if they can do it, like, why not me? Yeah, so that was one of the reasons why I kind of did a bigger documentary of sorts also. And going back, so I think picking your battles is something that I wanted to say also. Because my final year project, this wasn't supposed to be it. Like, it was supposed to be like maybe my own brand. But I think in whatever we do, picking our own battles, be it like fighting with your bosses, things like, oh, I have, let's say, 2 opportunities, and then you don't know what you want to do. I think sometimes just dive into it. You don't know where you will go. And this project literally brought me to knowing all these talented people and brought me work as well. So this is my Paris trip with YIB. So after my final year project, I got a chance to go with them and document their first Paris fashion show. These are just screenshots of a movie or a whole documentary that I'm making, which is about like 1 hour plus. That will only come out when I figure out what the mechanics of this whole thing is. But anyways, so like you can see, right? These are just a bunch of boys that literally came together and put something. And whether or not you are invited to Paris, you literally can go there and just do the show as well, even though you're not on the calendar. And that was something that I learned. And all the models that they got is all free. They are literally all friends. Like, these are things that you can realize, oh, you just have to be resourceful. Yeah, and they just figure it out, I guess. I think, because if you realize the next slide, they got stopped by the police for the fashion show. That is something that I was lucky I caught it on camera. And I will only release this soon enough, hopefully soon. Yeah, next. Then the next thing I wanted to say is to surround yourself in your most ideal environment. I think putting yourself in places where you want to be, or who you aspire. Example would be Antwerp 6. Like these 6 Endolomeister, or these people, they never knew that they were going to be these Antwerp 6 kind of designers, but they were just banding together and just working things out. Like, these are things that maybe I think is very important, especially how you want to move forward, including the people that you want to work with or don't want to work with. I think this is how I think that I'm still figuring out this one also lah. But yeah, yeah, just like surrounding yourself with the right people. The other one very important. Fashion is not life and death. Being at Club 21, right, I realized a lot of people live and die with fashion. And this is one thing that I will really iterate, is that it's not like fashion is just something that you can wear and then take out anytime. And it's not, don't live and breathe fashion. It's not good. So from there, like, these are the, if you all don't know anything or whatever I'm saying, right, literally these are your notes. So be brave, pick your own battles, surround yourself with the best people, I guess, and then have fun. Yeah, that's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you to all our three speakers for their fascinating presentations. Can I invite all three of you to join me on stage? And if we can give them another round of applause. Okay, thank you so much to all the three speakers, Pit, Ify, and Brian, for all your fascinating presentations. I think we all had a lot to take away about geographies, urban landscapes, and just how the cities that we live in influence the way we not just design, but I think also dress and how we operate within these cities. So maybe to start off, since the topic of our talk today is fashion and cities, I'd like to maybe pose a question to first Pit and Ify, whoever would like to go first. Maybe if you can share a particular collection that was inspired by one city or multiple, either Singapore or elsewhere. Maybe Pit, you'd like to go first?
Yeah, my collection always respond to the spaces in Singapore. So it's kind of like naturally that I would do things that respond to that city. But I think that for me, the third collection now, which is a bit more interesting, which is stadiums, like sports complexes in general. I've never been a fan of sports also. Like I do exercise, but I'm not like a very sporty person. But that's interesting to look at. You see, I think I like to look at things that I don't necessarily resonate with, but I didn't find how can I have. There's always that kind of balance, or like trying to find. How can I resonate with it? How can I look at it a different way? So I think that's important for me to have. Yeah, so that's how I respond. That's my favorite collection for now.
Thank you for sharing. How about you, Ify?
Okay, so I think was also in the slide. So one of the collection is the first one that I did with the sustainable fabric. It's called Ajoye Eje, which means colorful journey, and is inspired by Tokyo, Japan. So I always been like super fan of the culture, and I really wanted to go. Then COVID happened, so I started reading books, like just to know more about the culture. And then I was talking with a friend of mine, and he was telling me about a story about water, which is the sui element in the Japanese culture that represents the strength and femininity and the flow and change, and was telling me about this river, and then there were stones and how the stones were not blocking the path of the river, but the river was just cuddling the stone. So that was so nice, like how do you represent like a woman into this strength. And then at the same time, in the Nigerian cultures, there's the element of water is represented by this water goddess called Yemoya, and she's the mother of the ocean and the rivers, and as well represents strength and represents also how we should all blaze our trail. So I had to incorporate these two into my collection. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much both for sharing two very interesting collections that I think deal with the city in very different ways. And in some ways, both of you are observers of the city, right? You're taking something that maybe is not, it's either both mundane and or very exceptional about the culture or the city around you, and then you're translating it into fashion.
Yeah.
And with that, actually, I'd like to bring Brian into the conversation. So we're talking about, say, we're all fashion creators, right? And in some ways, we're all observers and spectators of the urban landscape around us. So for the augmented reality video that you created for the exhibition that you showed us earlier, can you share a little bit more and elaborate more on what inspired you to create this kind of imagined landscape? Why Singapore and why that kind of landscape?
Okay, first of all, right, this final year project was about 2 years ago, right? So the COVID thing was like in your brain a lot. So I was really thinking of how to like put fashion, how to visualize fashion in a place where like we cannot take photos, or like we cannot leave our house. These are things that was running through my mind, and I was like, okay, how do we show Singapore, like the future of Singapore? And that's why I went on to create this like augmented world, and then I decided to put all these like clothes that is like the brands that are in right now, and it kind of shows that snapshot of this evolving like Singapore fashion in a space of like where Singapore will be in the next like maybe 50 years down the road. So that was why I kind of went into doing this whole augmented world thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, so I guess thinking about fashion and cities, something else that also comes to mind is the influence of the city on your respective practices, respective creative practices. So obviously all of us are based in Singapore right now, but we could technically choose somewhere else to be based. So maybe I'd like to direct the question back to Pit and Ify. As Singapore-based fashion designers, choosing to, root your fashion brand here and start your brand here and grow your brand here, what are some benefits and also challenges to running your brand in Singapore? Maybe Ify can start with this one.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, OliveAnkara just happened to. I was not planning, but I will say that first of all, Singapore has good strategy location, right? And then it has a very good supportive business environment. And these are things that helped me a lot. And while I will say it helped me also a lot because, as I said, my background is different. I was a scientist, and I was able to create a brand by working with these Singaporean seamstresses, right? That maybe in some other places you won't be able to do that. So I was able to be a scientist and then a designer at the same time. So I feel like, probably like if I think about myself in Italy, would have been able to do that. Of course, this came with challenges. Everything probably also, even like the material is more expensive. So. But was a good way to start, and then I will do it again. I will start from here. It was good to have Singapore to support me.
Yeah, I think that's a very interesting experience that's really unique to your brand, and we really see the influence of Singapore in your collections too, like with Little India, and you also have Hari Raya capsule collections, which is in the exhibition.
Yes.
So please go see it. So maybe let's turn to Pit as well. So your brand, as you mentioned, all three collections so far have always drawn from Singapore as a main source of inspiration. It would almost seem that Singapore is quite integral to sort of the DNA of your brand. Same question. What are sort of the benefits and challenges to basing your brand here?
I think the benefit is comfort, right? Like you don't have, relocating, which means you have to start again from scratch, or like building new contacts and stuff. But I think because I've been here for a while, I know who to find. I also teach in fashion, so I think also like it's very easy for me to kind of like seek for help, around. Most of the time it's me running around with my interns, I think that leads to the challenges. I think resources is one of the challenges. We don't have a mill, we don't have a factory production place, so and our crafters are getting older, and one of the reasons why I teach is also to impart like these techniques, to introduce this to the new generation, in hopes that there are makers out there. There are still makers who wants to make, who likes to sew and cut.
Yeah, so it's really that familiarity of your network as well, right? Yeah. Okay, so maybe expanding that conversation a little bit back to being observers of our city. Brian, since you sort of had the opportunity to interview these designers, including Pit and Ify, and also even shadowing YIB essentially using balaclava, can you share with us some of your takeaways or observations on what Singapore's streetwear is like? If you had to describe it, if you had to share with someone about what the streetwear scene is like, how would you describe it?
Maybe let's not talk about streetwear, but I think we'll just talk about fashion in general. I just think I have a lot of respect for all of them. Just imagine someone, a scientist, right? Like turning into a fashion designer. That's super crazy. What anybody would go and why would anyone design something along the roads of like the east side, like Geylang? Like why? Like you just think about it. That's super crazy. And just like YIB as well, like they just do fashion shows like on the top of a HDB building. That's also crazy. And all these people like take steps that aren't very conventional. And I think these people are risk takers, and that is one key takeaway that I really learned from them. Like they are brave enough to go forth and do whatever they want. She could be a scientist. She can maybe make a lot of money, but no, she wants to be a fashion designer, and I totally respect that. There's an expression to it, and this is how we put Singapore on the map. Literally, like if we don't have all these cultures intertwined, we wouldn't have all these different brands and different designs that will be coming out of here. And I'm quite sure in the next 20 years or so, right, these brands will grow into something way bigger. Not just talking about the designs, right, but geographically, Singapore works. I feel like Singapore actually works. You will talk about Paris, you talk about London, you talk about Milan. These are things that happened 100 years ago. That's why they are doing fashion show. But the new thing, I really think that Singapore will be going somewhere as long as everybody is brave enough to take that step. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so to end off, I have one last question before I open the floor. So I'd be really curious to hear actually from all three of you. Maybe if you could each share one city that you find inspirational in terms of style, culture, history. It could be any city apart from Singapore. Yeah, maybe Ify can go first.
Yeah, for me it's home, and home are two places, so it's not one city. One is Venice. I mean, the elegance and timeless of Venice is amazing, the architecture and everything. And the fact that you can find a lot of people, and yeah, is amazing. And the other one is home still, Nigeria, where I'm coming from, because of the bold prints, because of the vibrancy, because of the music, because of the food and everything. Yeah, so I think I have to. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. How about you, Pit?
For me, it will always be Tokyo, Japan. Just for the ability, the big three, Yoji, Issei, Com, how they have synthesized, right, their cultural craft with Western values. I think these are really inspirational or aspirational for me to work within the fashion sphere in Singapore. How can I do the same way but in a Singaporean way? Yeah.
And last but not least, Brian?
I don't have any city that I really like, but really, Paris was so bad. It's really bad for fashion. I guess the platform that I really would find myself being inspired by is really the internet. I can see everything from here, and Singapore is the place where everybody comes and goes through Singapore. Artists, musicians. The reason why Taylor Swift even exists here only is really is Singapore, and I think that is, you just find everything from everywhere, and then we put them together, and that's how I feel like Singapore will grow in terms of just not just like fashion, but like culture as well. And that from that culture, we will develop a stronger identity and fashion.
Okay, thank you. We'll now open the floor to questions. We'll have some mics going around if anyone has questions. Oh, we have one at the front.
Okay, all right, then I will start. Hi, my name is Anya. I'm interested if art, like painting, sculpture, any kind of art, Singaporean art as well as international art, gives you inspiration, and in what way, or if you have a favorite artist, and whoever has an answer can share it with us. Thank you.
Maybe Pit?
Yeah. So I have this thing with my ex-boss last time when I was working as a fashion designing in another brand. He was like, you need to look at clothes to design clothes. And I'm like, no, I need to look at like objects or paintings or a door or a window. And you don't understand this, but I think I look at art more often than I look at clothes. One of my favorite artists in Singapore is Ian Wu, who's also like my supervisor right now. And yeah, I think I'm just at the beginning of my program, and I'm learning more about the scene and trying to integrate art within my practice as well. Yeah.
Ify, do you have?
Yeah. So when I was a kid, my favorite artist was Andy Warhol. You know, like how he was able to put, it was unconventional, right? So it's something that I'm always trying to put into my designs, to put something unconventional, put some people out of your comfort zones. That is what, how he has inspired me.
Brian, do you have a favorite artist?
I don't know. Maybe Verdi. I'm not sure whether you guys know. He's from Tokyo. He does all that kind of cute like bunny things. I don't know, but I think it's more that how he built the culture around it as well. He does work for Blackpink recently, but from how he started was he did work for all your alternative bands, and from there his work grew to whatever it was today. And just that journey itself, right, and how he used that character or that art, his art form, and how that transpired to whatever it was. You can see from his art that it grew as well. That maturing of his art is something that I thought it was very refreshing. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? Okay, we have one at the back.
Hi, my name is Kaya Campbell. I'm a student and curator here in Singapore, but originally from New York. And I'm just curious to know how you're finding your way out of this web of constantly being put under the pressure of the idea that the creative industry is oversaturated, and making your way outside of that and making your mark on the world. Because most people, you say, yeah, I'm entering the creative arts, and they go, damn. So how do you find your way to exit that oversaturated market?
Maybe, Brian, you'd like to take this as a fresh graduate.
Well, I'm also trying also, but I'm really trying. I think one thing, what I tell myself every day is to just keep doing. When you stop, that's when you lose the battle, in terms of like, you realize you have to compete with all these people, right? And it's a day-to-day thing. Like every day you come in to work, right? You realize like, this is what I want to do. The moment you stop and say, I don't want to do this, you lose the battle. You lose like being in this oversaturated market. You're not even in there anymore. And just telling yourself that every single day, I believe like 20 years down the road, you'll be like, okay, I'm here now. Yeah, so just concentrate on yourself and just do what you think is right. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with what Brian said. You just have to stay true to yourself, and then always, because it can happen. It happens also to me, like, why am I doing this? And you just have to start thinking, why did I start it? What do I want people to see? For my case is to showcase my culture in a different way, showcase the innovation, the tradition into innovation. Just don't lose that.
For me, it's just about navigating and positioning. I think these two things takes time. Like, you have to navigate. It takes time to navigate your way through the market, or also to position yourself. But it's also like a journey. You will never find the right positioning. It's like you're always trying to find it, but you will know there's like a sweet spot for it. Yeah, the more you practice, I would say that. Yeah.
Okay, and we have time for one last question at the back.
Hi there, my name is Onyata. Congratulations to the designers on stage. I just have a question, and it's coming from a practitioner's perspective. I just wanted to hear, in your journey, and Brian as well, I mean, from the angle that you have shared with us, what is the biggest obstacle in establishing a brand in a city called Singapore? Biggest obstacle. Thank you.
Maybe Ify, you want to go
Sorry,
first?
so your question is like, what were our big obstacles to start our brand in Singapore?
What is the biggest obstacle in establishing a brand in Singapore, and particularly, I mean, in relation to your own journey, I suppose, as designers?
Well, the first thing is get your brand out. Like let people know about your brand. So, you just have to. It's all about the storytelling, right? So that can be an obstacle, awareness. How to, you can have a good product, but if you don't communicate, you don't tell about your product to the people, they will never know. So that's one obstacles that I can find in Singapore. And then maybe something that can stop you at the beginning, which is not only in Singapore, it's just like, the idea to start and to put yourself at risk, or to start something new, which takes you out from your comfort zone. I don't know if I answered your question, but I hope so. Otherwise, maybe I didn't understand the question.
Yeah, I mean, Pit, maybe like to also share your biggest obstacle of establishing a brand. I think that answers the question, yeah.
So someone signaling is money. So I mean, I think a lot have to do with like commerce, right? I think for me, it's really the biggest obstacle. It's about what institutions or like funders like expect out of like a brand, of a Singaporean brand. So there are no alternative aspect, or like there are no space to have an alternative look on what a fashion brand should be, which leads to the most biggest obstacle for me, because like commerce is important. I agree on that, yeah. But what about like the artistic side of it? That's the longevity of like your brand, your DNA, and it takes time to make that thing solid, right? The foundation. So you can't just think about, will it sell 50,000 pieces within a day? So I think that's kind of like a problem for me, like an obstacle for the situation, like being established. So I'm trying to say, yeah.
Thank you. And the last question at the back.
Hi, I'm Summer. I'm also like working in the fashion industry and also a LaSalle graduate. I guess my question would be, because Brian mentioned that his biggest inspiration is probably the internet, I guess that's very true for all like Gen Zs, I guess. But how, as a creative and also as a designer, would you also, I guess, like distill your ideas and inspirations from the internet, but give it a more Singaporean twist? I really want to hear from all three of you as well. Yeah.
So if I understand the question correctly, you're essentially asking how do you distill what you see online into and then bringing a Singaporean twist to it. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess it's thinking about the internet also as a city, and how do you then bring your Singaporean angle to your brand?
Okay. Number one, right? I think the first thing that we have to establish that is Singapore has no culture. I personally, like, really, like, we are 50, how many years already? 59, yeah, 59. And I think we are very, very early, in our early stages as a country. every other country out there has a long, long history, and ours is really not. So for now, I think that conversation would be, how do you contribute to the culture? And from there, right, when you contribute to the culture, that is when we really have like a whole, it's like a blank space for now. Like, we can put anything we want out there and people won't judge, because we really are like new, I would say. So in terms of what you are saying, like, oh, how do we put that Singaporean twist? I think it's just all on you. Like, just surround yourself with all the different people. The best thing is that it's because, like, most of my friends are Malays. Like, some people, most of their friends are Chinese. Like, all these influences is not, you cannot find that everywhere else. And with that, just being around these people and who you want to be with, you will naturally find that, okay, I'm gonna do this. That's how I would like take on that challenge. Yeah.
Thank you for your thoughts, Brian. I think through the exhibition, we see that actually Singapore has a diversity of cultures and history to draw from. And I think we see that in both Ify's and Pit's work. So maybe to end off, maybe you guys can share how Singapore influences the designs that your brand puts out to close off the session tonight.
Just closing off, I think I feel like my brand, although it's a bit like, obscure or whatever, like, I think at the end of the day, it's just a love letter to Singapore. I think I would say that, yeah. Love-hate kind of thing, but it's a love letter, yeah.
Fascination and frustration, both, yeah. And Ify?
Yeah, for me is, like I said during all my presentation, is the mix of cultures, which I never experienced when I was living in Italy. It just came out here when I moved to Singapore. I was amazed by how you can go to a Chinese wedding and then wearing the chamsam, or go to an Indian wedding and wearing. So that's amazing. So that's my twist, and then that's why I try to incorporate all the different cultures in my designs.
Okay, thank you so much to all the three speakers. If we give them another round of applause for their time tonight. Okay. And thank you everyone for joining us tonight. We have come to the end of the session. Thank you once again to Pit, Ify and Brian for joining us today. We hope you'll visit the SG Fashion Now exhibition. It runs till this Sunday, 1st September. We are also selling copies of the exhibition publication documenting all 3 editions of SG Fashion Now, retailing for $45, available at our gift shop, Supermama and Epigram. So we hope you can join us again on 11th of October, Friday at the same venue for the next talk at the ACM Conversations talk series titled Batik in the Making of the Oi Family, Pekalongan, Java. This talk is held in conjunction with the new special exhibition that will open at the Peranakan Museum on 11 October, Batik Nyonya, 3 Generations of Art and Entrepreneurship. And we'd really appreciate it if you could give us your feedback by scanning the QR code on the screen. This will help us improve the way that we organize our lectures. I would like to thank Dalio Philanthropies once again for the kind support of this talk, and I hope to see you back here again for the next talk. Thank you and good night.